With that tariff war continuing, new data shows Canadians are boycotting travel to the United States. Tyson Fedor joins us from the airport tonight. And Tyson, we haven't seen declines like this since the pandemic.
And Tara, it sounds like Canadians are willing to put their money where their mouth is and not actually travel to some U.S. destinations. The airlines are taking note, some of them even scaling back operations just a bit starting next month. But will it be a trend that continues moving forward here in Canada?
2 weeks poolside in the Arizona desert. The Farias are back home in Calgary. While they have been away, the on-again, off-again tariff threats have ramped up between both Canada and the U.S.
It's completely crazy. I think people should stand up to them.
And now it has them considering other options for future trips.
We have a place in Europe too. That's our background, and probably we're going to choose Europe. I'm concerned because we don't know how much longer we're going to have the property there. And properties their values are going to be hit.
Canada has just dropped a bombshell on America, and it's not coming from Washington or Ottawa, but from the streets, the stores, and the wallets of everyday Canadians. What began as frustration has exploded into a nationwide boycott of the United States, with Canadian consumers, businesses, and even local governments taking part in a coordinated economic pushback. Enough is enough.
When she goes shopping, Hélène Dumas now has one rule: avoid buying American.
That's from Quebec.
The reason? Donald Trump's trade war against Canada, the US's second biggest trading partner.
It's the small ways we can protest as consumers. A lot of people are trying to express their anger, their feeling of betrayal by the United States.
Beyond the shopping baskets, the boycott is being followed by an entire distribution chain.
Here we have a display just for Quebec, and we're putting more emphasis on that. Then we have products with the Canadian logo. Our warehouse shifted gears very quickly, looking for regional products from Canada and also from other countries outside the United States.
To help consumers, newspaper articles, social media groups, and now apps are listing local products, but it's often difficult to hit the American wallet without also impacting the Canadian economy.
We have companies that are 100% American, but with factories in Canada using Canadian workers and Canadian ingredients. In such cases, it can be hard for a consumer to know whether or not we are succeeding in hurting the Americans.
Faced with the Goliath over the border, Canada is now looking inwards. The removal of customs barriers between its territories and provinces will bring prices down by 15% and increase productivity by 7%, according to the government.
At the heart of this boycott is a growing anger toward former President Donald Trump's policies, particularly a controversial new round of tariffs targeting Canadian goods. But this isn't just about trade. Canadians are reacting to what they see as a broader pattern of disrespect, from aggressive border policies to dismissive rhetoric on global issues. In response, they're choosing to hit where it hurts: the U.S. economy. Already, the fallout is visible. Canadian travel to the United States has dropped sharply, with air travel down over 2% and road crossings falling even faster. Provinces like Ontario are pulling American-made liquor from their shelves.
Visits by air to the U.S. decreased only 2.4%.
We've never known it so busy. We have had quite a few people actually who have contemplated cancelling trips. Obviously, they feel strongly about it. They don't want to go into the States.
4.1 million people arrived internationally in February, a nearly 11% decline. Travel agent Leslie Cater says many customers are seeking trips to Mexico, the Caribbean, or right here within Canada.
People want to visit and see. We've got the beautiful Vancouver Island, the coastline there, Desolation Sound, all of those places.
Meanwhile, as part of a crackdown on illegal immigration, the U.S. says Canadians now need to register with the U.S. government if they plan to stay in the state longer than 30 days. The new rules only apply to Canadians driving into the country.
Failure to do so would result in prosecution and criminal and civil penalties.
WestJet recently saw a 25% decrease in Canadians booking flights to the U.S. The airline says in a statement it's seen a shift of booking to destinations such as Mexico and the Caribbean while focusing on flying to places where there is demand.
And across social media, viral apps are helping Canadians scan products and avoid anything made south of the border. This isn't a government order. This is a people-powered boycott. But make no mistake, it's sending shockwaves through America's tourism, retail, and trade sectors. What was once one of the world's closest alliances is now showing signs of serious strain. Canadians are changing their traditions cause of Trump.
This is our Blue Jays game we went to see in Kansas City with the Royals.
Tony Ranella has good memories of his past trips down south. His tour company took busloads of Canadian baseball fans to see the Blue Jays play in the U.S. An annual pilgrimage that dates way back.
1989, so it's getting closer to almost 40 years.
He was planning to take a tour group to see the Jays play in Minnesota this June, but due to rising political tensions, he canceled the trip.
It saddens me that we've gotten to this point. Unless these tensions subside, I don't know how things are going to get better.
Data shows that Ranella is not the only one canceling travel plans to our southern neighbor. Numbers from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows a drop of nearly 500,000 visitors crossing land borders from Canada to the U.S. in February compared to last year. A recent Leger survey found 36% of respondents with U.S. travel plans also said they already canceled them.
They're just not looking to travel to the U.S.
Tim McDonnell owns Elite Sports Tours in Toronto. His company recently slashed 5 of their 8 baseball trips to the U.S.
Since Trump has taken office, the feedback as far as inquiries, bookings has been pretty abysmal.
As for Ranella, he isn't giving up. He's just making plans for games within Canada.
A flight to Toronto and 3 nights hotel is going to cost just as much as going down to Minneapolis. I'd rather fly to Toronto.
Ranella also says that for as long as Trump remains in the White House, he won't plan any trips down south. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Unlike traditional state-level sanctions, Canada's boycott isn't being dictated from Parliament Hill. It's happening at the grassroots level, and it's surprisingly organized. The movement spans tourism, consumer behavior, and even government procurement in some provinces. It's a mosaic of quiet refusals that, together, are creating real pressure. First, there's tourism. Canadians have long been one of the biggest sources of international visitors to the U.S., especially in cities like Miami, New York, and Las Vegas. But this year, that flow has slowed dramatically. In February alone, road trips to the U.S. dropped by 23%, while air travel dipped by 2.4%. Some border towns that once thrived on Canadian traffic are now eerily quiet, with gas stations, diners, and small shops reporting major losses. A major airline, Air Canada, is facing decline due to this.
Air Canada shares jumping today, even though the company has trimmed its financial forecast for the year. You can see, of course, the stock has been on the slide over the past few months. Our guest says that earnings came in marginally below expectations, or at least his expectations, but he has a buy on the stock. Of course, one of the question marks here is how much pain will Air Canada feel if cross-border travel between the US and Canada comes down on a long-term basis? We're joined by Chris Murray, Managing Director of Institutional Research at ATB Capital Markets. Great to see you, Chris.
Morning.
Quite the rally for Air Canada today. Why are investors relieved, do you think?
Well, I think the key word there is relief. There was some concern that U.S. transborder travel could have been a lot worse than it really was. And so what we saw was the leisure portion of travel was weak. Places like Florida, Las Vegas, things like that. But the rest of the business seems to be holding up quite well. And then what they also talked about too is that international business to the Pacific, Atlantic, and Latin America is actually doing quite well. And, they talked about the fact that we should see a year, at least for Q2 and Q3, that looks a lot like last year.
because they, of course, international is their strength. Give us an idea, though, how much of their business is U.S., Canada? It must be a big chunk.
It is a big chunk. It's about 30%. But again, if you break it down into 3 buckets, you sort of have the leisure component of it, but you also have what they call Sixth Freedom traffic in the where U.S. passengers will travel through Canada to other parts of the world. And then you also have the regular business travel.
Second, Canadian liquor stores and supermarkets are turning away U.S. products. Ontario's LCBO, one of the largest alcohol buyers in the world, has publicly confirmed it's suspending new orders of American spirits.
Inside the LCBO, the American whiskeys, the Kentucky bourbons that Premier Doug Ford has really honed in on, California wines, any U.S. ready-to-drink cocktails gone from the shelves.
The governor of Kentucky said, don't touch our bourbon. And I said, Governor, that's the first thing we're going after. We're going after their bourbon. I can tell you the people in Kentucky, they're great people. Do anything, but don't touch the bourbon. Well, we're the largest purchaser of bourbon in the world for Kentucky bourbon manufacturers. They're done, they're gone.
That's 3,600 products from 35 U.S. states no longer available. The booze has already been bought and paid for by the LCBO, pulling it off of the shelves at this point, driven by principle. Signs reading it's for the good of Ontario.
This is an enormous hit to the American producers. Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of U.S. wine, beer, cider, seltzers, and spirits.
How do shoppers feel about the move?
Going back to Canadian products is not going to be the same thing, but we just got to stick together.
I feel it's the right thing to do. I mean, these tariffs are unwarranted by the U.S. I think it's a fair retaliatory measure.
Many of my friends don't drink as well, so yeah, it doesn't really affect us, but I still think it's a good decision.
Other provinces are quietly following suit. Some retailers are also shifting shelf space to Canadian-made goods in response to growing consumer demand for alternatives. Even more striking is how technology has fueled the movement. 2 apps, Buy Beaver and MapleScan, have taken off, letting shoppers scan barcodes and instantly see whether a product is American-made. If it is, the apps suggest Canadian or international substitutes. Within weeks, these apps reached hundreds of thousands of downloads, and they're showing up in TikTok, Reddit threads, and even school classrooms. And while the federal government hasn't officially endorsed the boycott, it hasn't condemned it either. In fact, several Canadian MPs have voiced support for the idea of reducing reliance on the U.S., calling this a chance to build up local industries and protect Canada's economic independence. This is impacting sports teams too.
Long lines at the border to a sea of blue at T-Mobile Park. There's always been something special about the Blue Jays playing in Seattle. But Canada-U.S. trade tensions means many fans are bowing out.
Normally I would go down for multiple Mariners games throughout the season, but with the dollar where it's at, the overall political climate, I'm a little more content this year just to spend my money in Canada as opposed to go down there.
I've been there when there was 25,000 Blue Jays fans in the ballpark. I would be awfully surprised if they get 25,000 for any of the 3 games.
Earlier this week, Washington's lieutenant governor gave a grim outlook of how many Canadians are expected to come down.
The initial indication was that reservations have been cut in half as a consequence of what is going on.
Some Americans are showing sympathy.
We just don't deserve you. And so I'm hoping on a larger scale than just Seattle and the Blue Jays and the Mariners, that people in America feel what it's like to not have Canada.
Ultimately, for many fans, it's disappointing it's come to this.
It's supposed to be about the baseball, and because of what's going on, they're taking away from the baseball. Even for some kids who normally would go down and enjoy this experience, if the parents aren't going to take them down, the kids aren't going to get to see it, and maybe they're getting one less Major League Baseball experience because of what's going on.
While it seems many Jays fans are going to stay home, we'll have to wait until these games actually take place to see the scale of the drop-off. Martin McMahon, CTV News, Vancouver.
It's a rare moment of unity across political lines, and a sign that this isn't just about one policy or one president. For many Canadians, the boycott feels like a long overdue reckoning. Initially, American officials dismissed the boycott as a fleeting tantrum, a momentary flare of northern anger that would subside. But now, as the figures mount, Washington is beginning to take notice. Tourism boards throughout the U.S. are quietly ringing the alarm. Cities such as Orlando, New York, and Las Vegas, which rely on Canadian visitors to pack hotels, restaurants, and theme parks, are reporting a significant decrease in bookings. Recent estimates state that the U.S. stands to lose more than $4 billion in tourism revenue if Canadian travel does not improve. Already, some hotels and resorts are cutting prices sharply and running marketing campaigns specifically designed to win back Canadians. These losses are massive.
3 times as many Canadians are staying away from the U.S. than the national travel industry first predicted, setting up a potential $6 billion economic loss this year. Last month, the number of Canadians taking road trips into the U.S., the primary way Canadians visit the States, dropped by 32% compared to March 2024, according to new data from Statistics Canada. There was also a 13.5% decline in air travelers from Canada compared to March 2024. It was the 3rd consecutive month of steep decline of inbound Canadian car travel, following a 23% year-over-year drop in car travel and a 2.4% drop in air travel to the U.S. in February after President Donald Trump announced tariffs. The U.S. Travel Association warned in February that even a 10% reduction in Canadian inbound tourism could translate to $2.1 billion in lost spending and 140,000 jobs jeopardized in the hospitality and related sectors. Using USTA's calculations, a sustained decline of more than 30% in Canadian visitors would translate to more than $6 billion in losses to the U.S. economy in 2025. The sharp decline in international visitors in 2025 follows 2 years of growth. Canadians, who make up around 25% of all foreign visitors to the U.S., are the largest group of inbound tourists. In 2024, Canadian travelers spent $20.5 billion in the U.S., almost double the $10.4 billion Americans spent at McDonald's in the same year. Data from the U.S. National Travel and Tourism Office shows that Mexico, the 2nd largest market for inbound tourism to the U.S., also sent 23% fewer air travelers to the U.S. in March compared to the same period last year.
In border communities such as Point Roberts, Washington, a small U.S. peninsula that relies nearly exclusively on Canadian traffic, the impact is palpable and debilitating. Merchants there say foot traffic is down 22%, and some threaten to close. Gas stations, grocery stores, and cafes that used to thrive on weekend trips from Vancouver are now strangely still.
U.S. and Canadian citizens have been intertwined in Point Roberts for more than 100 years. Many Canadians come here for cheap gas, groceries, or the seaside, but the trade war has slowed that traffic to a trickle, cutting border crossings almost in half.
If I don't do well in the next few months here, I might have to close my doors.
It's very sad.
Cafe manager Ailish Wallace says U.S. tariffs have turned off tourists.
Sad, angry, frustrated, hopeful that, it'll turn itself around and we won't have this continued stress and pressure.
The trade war has slowed investment and building. So her husband, a contractor, is forced to leave his family and head to Hawaii, where he can earn a living by helping rebuild after fires there.
We want to keep our home.
We can't do without Canada's support. We won't exist.
This man is fighting for the community his grandmother settled in. He's petitioning Canada to exempt Point Roberts from any retaliatory taxes or tariffs.
And 90% of our economic activity comes from British Columbia. 90%. Take that away and say we're not coming to Point Roberts anymore. We're done. We're done.
This community relies on Canada for business, electricity, even water. The community is so Canadian-friendly, gas is sold by the liter. Pandemic restrictions hit Point Roberts hard. Tariffs for some may be the final blow.
It's all Canadians who are buying the gas.
Canadian Bob Cook acknowledges the tension.
People in Canada are outraged. They feel like they've been attacked, and they're just furious.
But he says he's still standing by his neighbor.
I'm not going to boycott Point Roberts. These are my friends here.
So he's doing what he can to push back on the paradigm shift by showing up for old friends. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Point Roberts, Washington.
Retailers are also taking the hit. While large box chains such as Walmart and Costco have not experienced dramatic nationwide declines, their Canadian divisions are under stress to conform. Some have started promoting locally made initiatives to keep customers on board. Meanwhile, smaller American brands, particularly food, fashion, and liquor brands, are quietly seeing their Canadian revenue dwindle.
With a live look at the Peace Bridge tonight, we begin 7 News with concerns that a declining number of Canadians making this trip across the border into Western New York could have a major economic impact in some communities. Good evening once again. One of the reasons for any sort of decline is no secret. The trade war between the Trump administration and Canada, as well as the president's calls to make the country an American state, have soured some of our northern neighbors on the U.S. We have shared stories with you about Canadians changing their U.S. air travel and vacation plans, but tonight we're looking into the impact on our shopping destinations. Western New Yorkers used to seeing Canadian license plates in the parking lots of the Walden Galleria in Cheektowaga and the Outlet Mall in Niagara Falls. We have heard from multiple people associated with the outlets over the years who say thousands of Canadians visit annually.
We have seen tens of thousands of shoppers this holiday season. We've seen thousands of shoppers come across the border from Canada.
We do love being so close to the Canadian border here at the fashion outlets, so it's nice to be able to welcome Canadians.
So what could happen to these shopping centers and the surrounding areas if this customer base dries up? 7 News reporter Derek Hyde giving voice to town leadership in both communities who say they're already noticing a drop in Canadian traffic.
Canadian flags sit at the entrances of both the Walden Galleria and the fashion outlets of Niagara Falls.
We've seen such a decline in the Canadian shoppers.
Corporate America is finally waking up to it. In certain marketing communities, there's even buzz about De-Americanizing international brands, dialing back the use of U.S. imagery, and highlighting local supply chains. It was a strategy some firms employed during the Trump-era trade wars with China, and now it's re-emerging in Canada. Politically, the Trump administration is treading carefully. On the one hand, there is pressure to continue the hardline tariff policies that play well with nationalist voters. On the other hand, the economic pushback from Canada, historically one of America's closest friends, is beginning to look like more than mere symbolic noise. PM Carney had this to say about their relations with the USA.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over. President Trump again imposed unjustified tariffs on our nation in violation of our existing trade agreements. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country. And our response to these latest tariffs is to fight, is to protect, and to build. We will fight the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impacts here in Canada. It's my solemn promise that when President Trump threatens us again, we will fight back. We will fight back with everything we have to get the best deal for Canada. We will build an independent future for our country, stronger than ever. The road ahead will be long. There is no silver bullet. There is no quick fix. And I know and I understand that many are feeling anxious and worried about the future. Fundamental change is always unsettling. But I have every confidence in our country because I understand what President Trump does not. That we love Canada with every fiber of our being.
Canadian consumers are sending a clear message. They're done blindly buying American. In response to rising political tensions, tariffs, and what many perceive as U.S. arrogance, a grassroots boycott is reshaping everyday shopping habits across the country. Apps and online communities are helping Canadians identify and avoid US-made goods, while promoting homegrown alternatives. Viral TikToks and Reddit threads offer boycott-safe shopping guides, encouraging users to swap Heinz ketchup for French's or skip American cereals in favor of Canadian brands. This has crippled the wine industry.
Insight now into the troubles facing the American wine industry in the face of President Trump's tariffs. And some wineries are telling NBC News they may not come back from this trade war. Joining me now, Christy Korsviselli, CEO of Goose Cross Cellars in California's Napa Valley. And I'm going to tell viewers the middle name that you have is for good reason, thanks to your great-great-grandfather, starting off Coors Beer. And you told me it's cool. The family's all right with the fact that you're doing wine, and that's a beer family. But you have said, Christy, that the wine industry was struggling before the tariffs. How would you describe it now? I'm curious the impacts the tariffs are having on your winery.
You know, I think the tariffs are going to impact us more long-term than short-term. You know, we age our wine in French oak barrels. The American barrels impart different flavors into the wine than the French oak do. So a lot of producers are only using French oak barrels. So that will cause us to struggle in the long term. Everybody buying barrels right now are working with their barrel suppliers to talk about how we can share in the tariff cost. And some of ours have allowed us to split the tariffs. That'll probably end up around 10% right now, because we will get the barrels before 90 days.
It all kicks in, yeah.
So we're splitting that. So that's helping. Every little bit helps.
Okay, but you might have seen the video we played going into the commercial. The tariffs have caused Canadians to take American wine and liquor off the store shelves and out of their restaurants. And it's not just Canadians who are angry at the U.S. You've got Europeans that are annoyed too. So I know you do not sell overseas, Christy, but when you see so much product being taken off the shelves, what goes through your mind for those American distilleries and wineries?
The movement has gained so much momentum that even major retailers are taking notice. Some U.S. companies are now trying to adapt by rebranding their products as North American, moving production into Canada, or adding Canadian flags to their packaging. But many Canadians say it's too little, too late. For them, the boycott isn't just about money, it's about self-respect and national pride. This shift is already costing American businesses millions in lost revenue. And if these new consumer habits become long-term preferences, the economic fallout could extend far beyond the current political climate. In kitchens, closets, and shopping carts, a quiet revolution is underway, one that's challenging the very foundation of US-Canada trade. So, is this the start of a long-term shift in how Canadians view America, or just a temporary backlash that will fade with time? Either way, the message is loud and clear. Canadians are voting with their dollars, and the impact is already being felt across the border. If you found this video insightful, make sure to give it a like, and if you want to stay updated on global politics, economic trends, and how they affect you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.